Hello, everyone. Hello, people in chat. Thank you all for joining us today. This is an Into Games sort of live stream in partnership with Playground Games, where today we're going to be talking a little bit about IG50 and just what is it and sort of why is it and how is it and all of these sorts of questions that you may have about IG50. And joining me today, I'm not just here by myself. I'm not going to sort of try and tackle this all alone. No. I am joined by two individuals. I am joined by Nareice Wine. Hello, Nareice. Thank you for joining us.
Hey.
And I am joined by Roxanne Marshall. Thank you for joining us, Roxanne.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. So today we're just here to talk a little bit about IG50, and this is sort of a supplementary material, if you will, because it's all well and good that we've got a great website. It's got an incredible FAQ. This is our third year running IG50 now. So if you've seen this before, it could be that you're already very familiar with how a lot of this runs. But this is really so that we can expand on what IG50 is for people that may not be sure, for people who are just seeing it for the first time and thinking, I think I know what this is. I think I'd like to apply, but I'd really like someone to sort of expand on what this is and is it for me, and sort of what can I get out of it. What can it do for me? And just talking a little bit as well about, if you are thinking about applying for IG50, what can you do to make sure that your application is as strong as it can be, sort of putting your best foot forward, and yeah, just sort of doing yourself that little bit of a favor, really. So today Nareice Wine is joining us. Nareice, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself, sort of who you are, what you do, etc.?
Yeah, sure thing. So hello everyone. I'm Nareice. I'm a senior producer here at Playground Games. I've been at Playground for nearly 4 years now, and I work on Fable. I'm also one of the ERG leads as well, so Employee Resource Group for people of colour. That's just making sure that we look after everyone at the studio and that everyone feels welcomed and everyone's got a voice as well. But yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much for all of that. And of course, Roxanne, would you like to just say a little bit about yourself? And do you have a relationship with IG50? Hint.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Roxanne Marshall. I joined IG50 last year as one of the winners. I'm now marketing communications lead at Riot Games. So it's been super successful to me. I'm really looking forward to telling you all a bit more about my story and my journey with IG50.
Cool, brilliant stuff. Thank you so much. So first of all, I thought let's sort of talk about like the bare bones of what is IG50, right? Like what we're sort of just saying 2 letters and a number, and it's not very obvious what that means, really. And so I suppose IG50 is like it's sort of an awards scheme, an awards program. So we ask that applicants would apply to become part of IG50 to win IG50 this year. And what it's sort of intended to do is to highlight, spotlight, and sort of uplift undiscovered talent in the UK games industry. So the best version of IG50 is you are someone who you are so ready to work in the games industry. You've been putting in the hard work. You've got all of these projects. You've got an incredible portfolio. You've got the skills and the talent, but the entry level, the wall is so high. The entry level wall is so high to climb in the games industry. It's so hard to get that first opportunity. You can apply for lots and lots and lots of junior opportunities, and you may find that first hurdle just keeps failing you over and over and over again, despite having really incredible talents, really incredible kind of skills and sort of toolkit on your belt. And that's really hard to overcome. It just really is a difficult place to be stuck in. And so sort of what we promise with IG50 is we promise that 50 people, we will find 50 people who apply for IG50. We will identify these individuals based on sort of their talent, their potential, their talent, what they've done thus far, everything that we can see that they can offer to the games industry. And by bringing them into the IG50 cohort, we basically give them support. We spotlight them to potential recruiters. We make all sorts of noise about them in social media channels to the rest of the UK games industry, really saying, hey, look at these people, look at these incredible talents who they're ready to be hired, they're ready to work, and they could bring so much to your studio, to your operation, if you just gave them the chance. and really just trying to sort of create a space where these people can be celebrated, where they can be sort of just uplifted in a way that, you know, when you're in that isolating space of rejection after rejection after rejection, it can be really hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel and to sort of really see beyond that wall, beyond that failure. And so, yeah, IG50 is there to really celebrate, to spotlight, to uplift, and to really as well just highlight like all of that undiscovered talent that we have here in the UK, because it's everywhere. You go to any games industry event and you will just see so many like bright sparks who are just looking for that first opportunity. And yeah, IG50 is there to just really spotlight that. And there is a process to it, right? So it starts with an application. And when you apply, what we're really looking for here is basically just for you to kind of tell your story. Who are you? What have you done? You know, what does this process mean to you? What can you bring to the games industry? What's your sort of dream? Where would you like to go? Really kind of paint a picture and sort of tell a story. And then we at Into Games, we get games industry professionals to come and basically judge, to sort of assess and give us their opinions and their viewpoints on everyone. And we get these judges in to sort of from different disciplines and from different studios and all sorts of different backgrounds to ensure that it's ideally it's just really diverse and it's coming from a lot of different angles. And if you are an artist, you can ensure that a professional artist is the one who is sort of looking through your portfolio and looking through your strengths and really able to connect with you at your discipline, at your skill level. And then based on that, we are then able to select 50 people, and it sort of just goes from there. I suppose what Roxanne, you went through this last year. You're an IG50 winner from 2023. What was the process like for you, all the way from sort of application through to sort of now-ish, really?
The start was pretty simple. I think I applied and then didn't really think anything of it for a little while. And I had a communication to say that I had won. There was some kind of embargo around the announcement, so I had to be quiet about it, which was hard. And kind of there was announcements that were made after that. We had help on like our CVs, and I had professional help with my CV before, but I actually changed a lot of it after working with One Play Mission. And then we had kind of different connections with some amazing studios and publishers in the UK, which was really great. And just continuous support even up until now on the Discord. I mean, following winning, whenever I've reached out about help or, is there connections that can be made from Into Games, I've always had that support. So, and just the people I've met along the way, the rest of the winners from last year, and the judges have become, this little kind of band of IG 2023. So the experience was really good. It was just really simple. I was made to feel really super special throughout all of it, and still do, which is, even today, it's made me feel very special. So thank you.
No, thank you very much as well. I think, I've joined the Into Games quite recently, and it's been really delightful to see the IG50. They seem like such a strong community, it's sort of a strong network of potential talent. And yeah, it's been just really encouraging to see you sort of climb and succeed and thrive in various different ways. And yeah, it's just absolutely delightful, really. So I suppose the next sort of topic is like, that's what IG50 is, right? But sort of why, I suppose, is quite important. Why is it important to highlight all of this talent and this potential? And why is it important to sort of spotlight them and highlight them? And I alluded to it a lot earlier, talking about what that entry level wall and how difficult it is to get that first role in the games industry. So sort of Nareice, working as a producer at Playground Games, and just your career in general, what is your sort of experience with when you see juniors applying for roles and you see entry level talent entering the games industry? Does it feel very easy to get into? Like, you just do a little moving pixel and you can just get in, or does it feel like actually the industry is expecting a lot more than that at the entry level?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is there's not a lot of entry roles out there. It's actually it's actually really hard, and I think there is a big expectation that you need to have a portfolio and as everyone always says, about 20 years worth of experience for an entry-level role. So I think it is quite difficult, and I think because there's quite a lot of people trying to enter the games industry, there's a lot of people who are trying to go for like a lot of the same job roles as well. And I think as well, because portfolios, like they're really hard to understand what companies want. So you kind of have to make different portfolios for different like jobs and places as well. That can be really hard. So I really do feel for the folks who are applying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's often experiences where you'll have an entry level position, right, and it will have that swell of applications, and I mean that swell is huge, right? Like we're not talking like 50 to 100 like really promising applicants. It's like it's multiple hundreds, if not verging upon the 4 digits, surely, right? Because we've got so many institutions that will have graduates coming out every single year. And it's to sort of have this silly metaphor, but it's kind of like bottlenecking. There's more graduates than there are entry level positions, and so that swell just kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to separate the noise. Sort of trying to identify good talent in this massive swell of applications can be really difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's you're talking about that portfolio, how portfolios are really important earlier. And it's there's not a lot of resources that can teach someone how to just have the portfolio ready to go for every job. Like if you don't have the portfolio when you see the entry level position come up, there often isn't a good opportunity to just get one together, just scramble one up and sort of just make it available straight away. So you have to have a lot of kind of preparation in advance. And in particular, and I feel like this is definitely something that you'll speak to, but like diversity and inclusivity in the games industry, trying to make sure that we have, like at every application stage, not just a huge number of people, but a huge amount of diversity and a huge amount of sort of inclusive practices, so that job postings, job opportunities, they don't feel isolating or sort of exclusionary to any individual in the UK, regardless of their gender, their identity, their background in any way. This is obviously something that you've got a lot of experience in. How has that been? Has it been difficult sort of trying to challenge a lot of those expectations and trying to improve a lot of diversity and inclusivity, either where you are now or just in the games industry as a whole? And yeah, like, have you noticed that there are initiatives out there sort of really trying to support those things?
Yeah, definitely. I think just in my career in general, I think it's starting to get better. There's a lot more organisations out there to help people from, I guess, just from like underprivileged like backgrounds and such. You've got the People of Colour group down in London. What else have you got? You've got quite a few. Sorry, trying to think of which ones. You've got like a lot of Discord communities out there as well as into games too. Because I know that we're putting a lot more of an emphasis on diversity and inclusion, like for this round as well. I think it's just helping those get that extra visibility, who probably wouldn't normally get it. Is really important, especially when applying for something like this as well. I think it was in the census for 2022 or 23. I think it was like 60% of the video games industry is also men as well. So but it's not even just that. We've got a lot of junior talent who can enter the games industry and really make sure that it changes for the best as well. So I really think that's why we really need to get more people, more juniors into the games industry and make sure we've got roles open for them as well. It's super important. If we don't have that, how can we change for the better,
Exactly, yeah. And if it's like, if it doesn't change at the bottom line, then it's never going to change at the sort of the higher sort of top line and senior levels. Absolutely.
100%.
And sort of just to sort of draw on that a little bit more, IG50 is very much there to support people from those minority backgrounds and to be more diverse and more inclusive. So this year, I can see that there's a question in chat: is experience essential? And so to really just answer that question, to bring it all together, just talk a little bit about the eligibilities for IG50 this year. So first of all, this is a UK sort of organisation. It's a UK initiative, and so one of the eligibilities is that the applicant must either live in the UK and or have the right to work in the UK. Next up is we do ask that you're not in full-time education beyond August this year. So if this is your final year, then by all means go for it. Do apply for IG50 because you'll be out of education by the time summer comes around, and you're more than eligible to get involved. And we do ask that the applicants this year to be eligible do belong to an underrepresented or a disadvantaged community. And to sort of talk a little bit about that now. If you want to go back through this, by the way, if you're sort of wanting to reread these eligibility criterias, please do visit the IG50 website. The URL is intogames50.uk, and we have an FAQ on there that answers all these questions. And I'll make sure that a little URL appears on the screen any moment now to lead you there. But just to give you an idea of who we're regarding as underrepresented and disadvantaged this year, we are talking about so gender identity for women, or for anyone that identifies as non-binary or sort of gender diverse. That includes trans individuals, LGBTQ plus individuals. If you identify as sort of any diverse sexual orientations, then by all means, please go for it. People of color as well, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, or anyone from sort of an underrepresented ethnic minority and community. Neurodivergent, this is a massive one at the moment that hasn't really got enough of, we're building a vocabulary around neurodivergency at the moment. And so what we sort of say with this is self-diagnosis is completely valid and allowed in this. We're not going to ask you for a doctor's note. We're not going to ask you for medical evidence here. If you identify as neurodivergent, then by all means, please do apply. Similarly, we're supporting people with disabilities or long-term physical and mental conditions. Also support care leavers, so anyone who has been in the care system, that includes foster care, residential care, or any other form of care, and low-income backgrounds. And this is a huge one for Intergames. This is our main mission. Our main social mission is to improve social mobility, and that means identifying individuals who won't have had the resources, who may not have had the support, who may not have had the structure when they were young, and the financial support when they were young, to necessarily have access to the computers and the technology and the hardware necessary to get into computing and game dev early, or even access to higher education, which costs a huge amount of money, loan or not. And so if you identify as someone from a low income background, and again, please do go to the FAQ if you want to understand a little bit more about what that means. That is who IG50 is helping and looking to support this year. That was quite a long list to read through, so I just wanted to make sure I got that all on the ball. So thank you, everyone, for your patience there. I suppose if we look at IG50 in the past and sort of what it's done for people so far, we going through IG50 in the last 2 years. Now, it's not a ticket to a job. Like, we need to be really, really clear about that, right? IG50 is not a guarantee of any opportunity, and it will not suddenly open the doors to the kingdom. It's not the keys to the kingdom. Keep reusing that analogy. But it is hopefully help. It is support, and it is a boost in the right direction. In the past, our 2022 cohort, we know that 21 people have managed to get hired into a games industry role that they were looking for or hoping to get into. From the 2023 cohort, we've got 17 individuals that I can identify who have managed to do that as well. Roxanne, thank you for joining us. You're very much one of those. Roxanne, can you talk to me a little bit about, so you got into IG50, one player mission got involved, and there was this wonderful community. How do you feel that helped you personally in terms of either confidence? Do you feel like people had conversations with you that they might not have had before? So both sort of emotionally and practically, like winning IG50. Can you talk us a little bit through what that was like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like emotionally, what was really helpful for me was the validation when I won, just to know that the 2.5 years at that time that I'd been putting into kind of making the shift into the games industry was kind of worth it. And that I had, I just had that validation that, you are doing the right thing. And, all these additional things outside of work and the things I was doing and my job at the time, it was all validated. And that gave me a lot of confidence. it was actually one of the reasons why I quit my job at the time, because I knew that if I could do something like this, then I knew this was a point where I could finally get that job I was looking for. And I just really needed that space to do it. So emotionally, it was huge for me. It was a game changer. Practically, I kind of utilized being a winner quite a lot. And like you said, being a winner doesn't necessarily mean that you can just get that job. It's not a tick box, but being able to use it in conversations I had with people in interviews, even if they wasn't aware of IG50, to tell them that I had won the IG50 and a bit about what it was I think people really liked that when I was interviewing. And I used it, it's at the top of my CV, it still is, and on my LinkedIn. And we got some really awesome assets to use at the time to kind of promote ourselves and share what we had won and why. And I used that straight away. It was really nice to just have that kind of physical thing to say, this is something I've won. It's not like a trophy, but it might as well have been. Just have, the big pink banner with my face on it to say that I'd won. And like I said, when I was having my interviews, I brought it up quite a lot when I was speaking to Riot, and it was a conversation that we had through quite a few of the rounds, and I made sure to bring it up whenever I could. I really utilized kind of having the win as an opportunity, and I think it was really successful for me, and I think it is a big part of the reason that I was able to finally get my job after 3 years of making my way into the industry. But it's really, personally, you have to really work out how you're going to apply it if you do win, and make sure that you really make the most of it. But there are so many great ways to do that.
And there's something really interesting there, which is you mentioned it had been after 3 years. So it's not that you day zero went, I think I'd like to work in the games industry, applied for IG50 and it just happened. There's a lot that happened before IG50, right? So it was a build up of efforts and sort of, something that you were doing on your part. What had, what were you doing before IG50 that you feel that this kind of added to? Because it sounds like you had a build up, or you already had a lot there, and obviously you were an IG50 winner, so there must have been something in that application as well that really elevated you.
Yeah, I'd been doing a few things. So I had kind of pivoted my job at the time into a more gaming focused role, which was something that I was able to facilitate, just kind of aligning with what the business was doing at the time. But also I pushed my manager quite a lot, just to say that, if there's a gaming thing coming up, it's going to be mine and I'm going to own it. And that was taken very seriously, and I'm super lucky that I had that opportunity. But I did push for it very, very hard at the time. And then I started I had been applying for a while. It was in the winter of 2022 when I was struggling because I hadn't really got anywhere. And I reached out to Game Dev London. I think they reached out to me. I started doing podcasts for Game Dev London and working with Stuart DeVille, who then brought me onto his team at Fribly Games to do marketing. And I was just doing that in the background on my weekends. I went down to 4 days so that I could start doing that on Friday and really concentrate in my Fridays on my gaming kind of career and that focus. And just kind of making my presence on LinkedIn. I was talking a lot about gaming and trends and things that were happening. And I think it can feel very much like you're on the outside, but without having a job, you can still kind of work your way into the industry and network and start to get your name and your face out there. And then, winning IG50 was just really the icing on the cake. I just had that validation that everything that I'd been doing was for the right reason. And I'm really glad that I randomly applied that day.
Yeah, no, and I do love that little flavor as well, where you're saying you applied and actually you just kind of moved on. You didn't dwell on it. You weren't sat there every day refreshing your mailbox. Okay, where's my IG50 feedback? No, and just really lovely to hear. And I think there are so many people I know in the indie games community right now who are doing a lot of the same things as you, right? Which is they're not working full time in the games industry, and it is an aspiration of theirs. But in the meantime, they found small communities that look for volunteer support. They've found projects that they can kind of just do a little bit of chit chat. You know, they can start conversations by themselves, or they can start kind of gaining a presence in the game's community, even if they don't have that full-time role, they don't have that salary, that contract. That doesn't mean you can't find spaces where you are welcome and where you are allowed to start conversations and when you're allowed to sort of have a little bit of presence. And then IG50 just managed to basically all kind of kick that a little bit into overdrive, just that little nudge in the right direction. But who's to say that you wouldn't have succeeded without it? But it is obviously really encouraging to know that with it, this all happened, and just so lovely to hear. On that subject, on sort of thinking about how do you apply for IG50? How does someone apply for IG50 and stand out? And there's a lot that we've already touched on, right? The fact that you had started taking those steps, that you had started building those communities and started those conversations, and you also had a role where you could actually kind of push someone to nudge your responsibilities in the right direction. But I suppose what I'd really love to sort of zoom in on is like general, in any situation, whether it's IG50, whether it's your first role, whether it's any other kind of award system. How do people put their best foot forward? How do people stand out from the crowd? How do people communicate that this is something that they are right for, and identify their strengths? Nareice, I suspect in your time you will have had to give this advice to people, right? In any context, you will have had juniors ask you the question, you will have had teammates kind of want to move forward and come to you for advice, or just any situation. What are kind of your tips for someone who really needs to stand out amongst the crowd in an application process, where perhaps only a document, a CV, a portfolio, and a cover letter might be their only tools to success?
I would say first thing is try and find a mentor in the industry, someone who can help guide you, especially about your own discipline as well. They're the one person who can really help you like stand out and such, and just give you like those really good tips when applying for jobs. My other biggest one is try and find some game dev teams that you can join and do like little prototypes, work with a team and learn how to work with a team as well. I always think that looks really good on the CV. Places really love it when you've already like made something yourself or made something with somebody else as well. So yeah, just do small game jams, find someone who's making a small game and try and join the team. Another big thing I always say as well is learn how to do documentation as well. You have no idea how much studios use documentation, and it's a big skill. It's a big skill to learn as well. I think it would really make your application stand out too. And also just networking in general. Go to events as much as you can. There's WASD coming up. Try and get down there, talk to people, see what games are out there at the moment, like what's doing really well. But you never know, someone might need someone on their team. So give out your business cards, have links for your portfolios. There might be some more industry events too. And just really just get your name out there, and make sure you have a LinkedIn as well. And make sure it's all nice and spruced up too. Because a lot of people who are looking for anyone online or anything they normally go to LinkedIn and just like have a look at your profile and such. So yeah, those are my main tips.
Yeah, and a lot of that definitely echoes what I've heard in the industry thus far, the LinkedIn and the game jams and things like that. Roxanne, is there any bit of advice that you've been given thus far, or maybe even advice that you're now able to give that also speaks around the same subject?
I think just you need to have like good self-awareness when you're, whether you're trying to break into industry because you've just graduated or you're kind of switching careers. I think you need to be really aware of why you're doing all the various things you're doing, especially if it's not completely clear how that translates to gaming, because the industry is very different to other industries and there are lots of things that are similar, but it is its own beast. And I think just having that self-awareness of, I'm learning X thing because I know in the industry this is important, or, whatever that might be. I think that's really important. And just like be honest about your experience and what you're doing, because you might feel like you need to put something else in there, but if you're at the point where you think you should be applying, you're probably doing all the right things. So just apply. Just apply.
Yeah. There's something else to be said as well. We haven't really touched on this, but you can absolutely nominate someone else this year. We've added that feature in because we recognize that, you know, even for individuals who've been in the games industry for years now, imposter syndrome does not leave the body, right? It stays somewhere in there. It is an organ in and of its own. But you can, you know, if you know that someone else would be perfect for this, but they're really, you know, they may not be the kind of person who puts themselves forward very often, or you just sort of, you know, you think I will kind of give them that little boost, that little kick that they need to move forward with this career goal of theirs. By all means, you can nominate someone else. You know, what we ask is, if you want to nominate someone else, there is a form for that on the IG50 website. Below nominate yourself, it says nominate someone else. By all means, absolutely do that. I think it's, you know, when we're talking about inclusivity and diversity, especially, there are so many individuals who convince themselves that they're not worthy of the opportunity, or that they're not, you know, that they are not eligible enough for any given thing. And Roxanne, you mentioned moving from one industry to another as well, right? This IG50 isn't just for graduates and students who have spent their whole lives, or sort of, I say their whole lives, you know, their higher education period getting ready for games industry. There are so many people that come from other industries, myself included, where at a certain point in your life, you start to ask the question, is this something I want to do? Is this something I could do? Is this something that is available to me, even though I don't have that education and that experience? And it's, you know, look at all the experiences you've had thus far. Look at your soft skills. Look at what the industry you're in has taught you. And yeah, ask yourself, like, can I apply it? You know, can it be moved into this industry? And often the answer is yes, because the games industry is so insular that it actually gains a lot. It benefits a lot from people coming with outside ideas, with outside technologies and thoughts and experiences. So just a real big call to action there, which is like, if you're hesitating, stop it, get on in here, get into IG50. In terms of best practices, right? So like the games industry right now, and I suppose really I'd like to use maybe the game jams as sort of a jumping off point for this, right? But we know that game jams are important because it shows that you've collaborated and you worked as a team before, that you've made a product, and that it certainly it shows, right, that you have like just that little bit more experience in terms of actually making a product, more than all your soft skills, more than your full-time education and things like that. And so I think that's like definitely one thing that we recommend to everyone, that just like do a game jam, regardless of your discipline, regardless of whether or not you think you're going to be a programmer. Just try and get involved in a game jam. But do you think, you know, and I suppose I would open this question up to either of you, so just put your hand up if you think you've got a thought on it. But like, what have we noticed in trends in terms of entry-level positions in junior roles? Do we notice that there's a certain commonality with them all that might not be obvious, that people don't talk about enough? I think we alluded a little bit earlier that you're expected to maybe have a little bit too much experience for like an entry-level role or a junior role. But like, what does that actually mean? And yeah, is there anything else that we're not really talking about when it comes to those first few roles, or just maybe anything that surprised you about entry-level roles? You know, Roxanne, you entering the industry recently, or Nareice, you hiring juniors, or having juniors in your team and in your studio. Did they seem surprised by anything that wasn't really said from the output?
Do you want to go, Nareice?
So if nothing comes to mind, I won't push you, but I will give you a moment to think about it.
I think it's just how fast things probably go in the studio itself. There's probably been at every studio I've worked at. You kind of just jump straight into making the games, really. So I think, you know, having that knowledge, you know, from game jams or anything else, or having that mentor just to really help you kind of get your feet on the ground. I'd probably say, yeah, that's probably the biggest trend at the moment.
Yeah, things moving quite quickly as well. It's you'd think that, you know, with some game projects taking potentially half a decade, right, 5 years plus to complete, you'd almost expect there to be like it must be glacial, surely. But no, it sounds like actually you can get into a studio, and even if it's a long project, actually that doesn't mean that people aren't moving at 1 million miles per hour. Roxanne, what's your experience been? Has anything surprised you about the sort of the role that you're doing, the industry that you're in now, that you think, actually, man, I would have loved to have told myself this 6 months ago?
Probably not about the role I'm in now, apart from it's better than I would have imagined it to be. But when I was looking at roles, especially entry level roles, I found in marketing, but in particular, there was a lot of expectation to have a very kind of multi-skilled CV, especially when it comes to things like social media, but also kind of events and digital marketing and all different types of marketing, which can feel really scary, even for someone like me who's been in marketing for 7-8 years. It's constantly changing, and especially with social media becoming more of a focus in marketing compared to when I started, when it was more about email and direct mail. You do need to have quite a good awareness of all the different facets of it. And I think that's probably the same in different role types, is that with new technology and things constantly moving and changing, you don't necessarily need to have mastered all of that. But I think it's important to have a good awareness of the scope of what that role could be.
And I suppose, like, there are some very obvious things to us about the games industry, but I suppose actually, because this is for IG50, for people who haven't entered this space before, to demystify a few things, there's a really wonderful question in chat, which is like, do you think most juniors need degrees? There's always that conversation about, please have this many years experience, but often we don't actually count education as part of that experience. What's your experiences like, sort of seeing individuals coming in with certain kind of full-time degrees, 3 years of studying and things like that? Does it feel necessary? Does it feel like hiring teams and recruiters are expecting that and demanding it? Does it feel like it's something that can be overcome? And if so, how? I feel like, Nareice, you might have a little bit more sort of visibility on this one.
I would definitely say not as much anymore. I think, especially with a lot of people coming from different industries or just from different like skill levels as well, you don't always need that educational like background. Sometimes it's about what you've done so far, the projects you've worked on, or anything that you've done in your spare time, including your hobbies as well. Taking myself, for example, I went into full-time education, went to Bradford University, but I found it really hard to find a producer position for a good couple of years. It actually took me making my own game and making my own portfolio that way for me to get considered for my first associate producer role. So, unfortunately, my education, even though I spent three years doing it, it didn't really matter at that time. But it is different for different studios, and it also depends what area of expertise you're trying to get into. So, learning a programming language during university, that will be beneficial for you when you join a studio, but it might be a little bit different for artists or someone like me who's a producer as well. I'd definitely say take a look at different studios and what they require based on the requirements on the job description and such. But definitely don't worry too much if you don't want to go down the educational route. There's tutorials that are free on YouTube. There's classes that you can do as well, which are a lot cheaper than spending 3 years at uni. But also, if you do want to go down that route and you can become a bit more of a generalist, I'd say, by learning like different skills from university, that is still a valuable route as well. It depends on what you're looking for, really.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of biggest strengths of university at the moment is that you're kind of actually given a 3-year platform upon which to develop yourself. So you'll have your degree, and you should absolutely put yourself into that degree and learn from it. But also you have slightly better like supported living costs. You have access to resources that are cheap, that might be cheaper because you're a student than if not. And learning how to utilize those 3 years to the maximum, the fact that there's less expectation for you to be earning and working 40 hours a week, potentially. That's not true for everyone. I worked throughout all of university. But if you have the ability to use your university's resources, whether it's their hardware, their software, their perks, their discounts, whatever, and you're able to use that space to make your own projects, to make your own games, and build that community, that friendship, that network that's going to let you do that. I think that's probably, easily one of the biggest strengths of universities at the moment, is that community aspect and the access to the resources. We haven't really spoken about like what we're doing with IG50 this year in terms of winning, in terms of perks. And you've said something that sparked this out of me, so I'm sort of going to launch off of that, if you will, which is the idea that you should maybe do some courses and some extra learning and things like that. So I will, of course, do a little bit of a plug, because Into Games is running sprint courses this year. And these sprint courses, they're 3 weeks long. They're in the evening, sort of 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The idea being is that you can do these courses alongside any full-time job, any learning, any sort of day responsibilities that you may have. And they're led by industry professionals. They're really fun. They're really cool. They're 200 quid for the 3 weeks, which, again, when we compare that to a lot of courses available out there at the moment, is one of the most affordable things available at the moment. And what we offer to the Into Games 50 winners is we offer you a free place on any sprint course of your choice. So please do, look through our courses. We're currently doing courses in building an indie dev studio and in narrative design. We've got ones coming up in technical design and concept art. We've previously run ones in level design and leadership for programming and coders. So there's a huge amount there, and we're building more and more by the day. So by all means, like that is absolutely one incredible perk, I think, of winning IG50, is access to that course and access to that professional and that community, the people that you'll get to meet through that, and the relationships that you'll build off of it, as well as the portfolio piece that you will build in the end. We'll also make sure that our winners are sort of actually get a chance to talk to recruiters from Playground Games, as well as all of our partners here at Into Games. Just making sure that you get to have a conversation, that they get to assess you, they get to look at your strengths and what you should be highlighting, what can you be doing with your CVs and cover letters and your portfolios to make sure that you are the strongest applicant, or at least a much stronger applicant than you ever have been before. We also are teamed up with Limit Break this year, and Limit Break, you mentioned, Nareice, that mentorship feels, that you really advocate for mentorship in the games industry, and I double down on that as a Limit Break mentee 2 years in a row. We'll make sure that you become a part of the Limit Break mentorship scheme this year, which ensures that you'll be able to find a mentor and access that community of people who are all basically upskilling and supporting each other throughout the year. Limit Break is a really fantastic organization. By all means, do check them out. As well as the fact that we just basically scream and shout about you, right? We put you up on all our social medias. We create these wonderful graphics and assets that really just highlight who you are and why people should be looking at you and paying attention to you in any given scenario. And it really, if anything else, it puts you at the front of people's minds, so that when opportunities do come up, you're more likely to spring forth in their mind. You're more likely to kind of be highlighted as a potential candidate for that opportunity. And again, as Roxanne, as you were saying, you leverage it in conversations. You can really, really push to let people know that you have been identified. You have been judged by other games industry professionals. You've been given this platform, this space, and this award, and to really push that. Actually, that means something, and it should mean something, to other people as well, and potentially to sort of open new doors. I think that about covers it in terms of IG50. So I'm gonna bring the conversation sort of slowly to a little close there. Nareice and Roxanne, I want to thank you both so much for joining us. Do either of you, has there been anything that either of you wish you could have said today, whether it's a parting word of wisdom, whether it's something you really want to champion and shout about? Just the floor is all yours if there's anything you'd like to say. Nareice, if you have anything, by all means, go for it.
So I know the industry looks really tough at the moment, like with getting into. I would say you can do this. I believe in you. We all believe in you. But just also make sure you help uplift others as well. It will come back around, trust me. And I think they will also do the same for you in the future. So always make sure that if you see someone who needs a bit of a helping hand, do the same. And I'm sure they'll do the same for you as well. It's a hard industry to get to, but once you're in, you know, you're in then, and then I'm sure you'll all smash it for sure. Good luck for you all.
That's so uplifting, so uplifting. Right, Roxanne, you got to match the tone now.
Ooh, the pressure. I was just gonna say, make sure that you're really leaning into any communities you're part of. You know, we've mentioned it a couple of times today, but the UK games industry communities are amazing. Like, we're so supportive of each other, and like Nareice says, we really will always lift each other up, always promote each other. So never feel that you can't reach out to someone for advice, to be a mentor, to ask about a job that they're doing, even if you're not going to apply, if you just want a bit of knowledge. Like, we really love getting people into the industry, and yeah, we really do support one another. So yeah, come join us.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I promised everyone a URL to IG50 way earlier, so there it is on screen, intergames50.uk. If you're not sure where to find that, you know, you can Google IG50. If you're part of the Intergames community in Discord, by all means, just reach out to me. I'm always active over there, and I'm more than happy to answer a question. And there's a wonderful FAQ page. It's really, really comprehensive, and hopefully it will answer any further questions you might have about IG50 this year. Applications are open until the 17th of April, so you've still got a little while, so please don't feel suddenly pushed to apply today off the back of this event. This is a really good chance for you to get your all your ducks in an order, I think that's a phrase, to make sure that your portfolio, your CV, your cover letter are as good as they can be, and to really take some of the advice that you've heard today and put it into practice for IG50. Thank you so much to everyone in the community for joining us. Thank you for all your questions in chat. We're not going to get through all of them today, but by all means, again, the FAQ can answer a lot of that. And if it doesn't, just reach out. We'll be more than happy to have a chat. Thank you, Nareice, for joining us. Thank you, Roxanne, for joining us. Really appreciate both of you giving your time for us today. Best of luck to everyone, just everyone all the time, really. Why be more specific about it than that? And thanks to chat for joining us today. I'm going to end the stream here. Bye-bye for now. Bye.